Rin stepped off the transport shuttle and into the massive arrival hall of the Galactic Unity Academy. The air here felt lighter than back home, yet his lungs pulled it in as if it were the freshest breath he had ever taken. Above him, crystal. Panels in the ceiling caught the twin suns and scattered their light into bright colors that danced along the walls. The hall was crowded with beings from across the galaxy. Tall insectoid recruits clicked their limbs as they walked. Slender beings of mist floated silently beside armored reptilians with scales like polished stone. Each one wore the silver badge of a new cadet. Rin's own badge felt small in his palm, but he pinned it to his chest and kept walking. He could feel eyes on him. Humans were rare at the academy. Most had never seen one outside of a trade station or diplomatic mission. He heard a few low murmurs as he passed. Some voices carried doubt. "Too soft for the drills," one voice said. "They break fast," said another. Rin kept his head forward. He had heard worse before, back in the colonies. The academy's halls stretched ahead, wide enough for 5 armored warriors to march side by side. The floor was smooth metal, polished to a shine. Along the sides, banners hung from the ceiling, each showing the crest of a world that had joined the Galactic Unity. The human crest was near the end of the row, a small emblem of a blue and green sphere wrapped in a silver ring. He stopped for a moment to look at it. The emblem seemed out of place among the bold symbols of ancient empires. But it was there. That meant something. A tall figure approached him. Its body was covered in plates of bronze armor, and its head had 4 small eyes set above a mouth, shaped like a thin line. The figure carried a training staff across its back. "You are human," the figure said in a voice like grinding stone. Rin nodded. "I am." "I am Tharine," it said, "from ZerathPrime. My people value endurance. I hope you can keep up." Rin gave a small smile. "I hope so, too." Tharine studied him for a moment, then walked on without another word. Rin continued toward the registration desk. The desk was shaped like a half-circle with a screen that displayed each recruit's name and assigned barracks. A pale blue attendant with long, delicate fingers tapped the screen as Rin approached. "Name," the attendant said. "Rin," he answered. The attendant's eyes shifted as the screen lit. Up with his record. "Human, colonial sector, assigned to Barracks 3. She handed him a thin silver wristband. "Wear this at all times. It tracks your location for drills and classes." Rin slid the band over his wrist. It fit snugly. The attendant pointed to a nearby transport belt that would carry him to his quarters. He stepped onto the moving belt and let it carry him through more of the academy. As he passed open training yards, he saw cadets already at work. Some were running through obstacle courses that shifted and rearranged themselves underfoot. Others practiced with energy blades that hummed when they moved. At one yard, a group of large fur-covered recruits were wrestling. One slammed another into the ground with enough force to make the platform shake. Rin felt the impact in his bones even from a distance. The belt slowed as it reached the barracks wing. Barracks 3 was a long corridor lined with metal doors. Each door had a small display showing the name of the occupant. Rin found his door, tapped the control, and stepped inside. The room was small but clean. A narrow bed against one wall, a locker against the other, and a desk with a screen built into its surface. A small window looked out onto one of the training fields. Rin set his small bag on the bed and sat down. The mattress was firm. He could see recruits moving on the field outside. Every motion seemed faster and stronger than what he had known back home. A voice came from the doorway. "You are my room neighbor." Rin looked up to see a being with smooth gray skin and a single ridge running over its head like a helmet. It wore the same cadet uniform as him. "I am Kel," it said. "From Rethus 4. "Rin," he replied. Kel looked him over. "I have never met a human. They say you are strong in your own way." "We will see," Rin said. Kel gave a slow nod, then moved on. Rin lay back on the bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling. The voices of doubt he had heard earlier came back to him, but he pushed them aside. He had not come here to prove anything to anyone else. He had come here because humans had only just begun to join the larger galaxy, and someone had to take the first steps. A chime sounded through the barracks. A calm voice spoke from hidden speakers. "All recruits, report to the Central Arena for orientation. You have 5 minutes." Rin stood, adjusted his badge, and left the room. The corridor filled with cadets of every shape and size, all moving toward the wide doors at the end. He walked among them, shorter than most, lighter than many, but with his steps steady and sure. The central arena was vast, with rows of seats rising high above a polished floor. Hollow displays floated in the air, showing the emblem of the academy. At the center stood a figure in white armor trimmed with gold. "I am Commander Rail," the figure said, voice amplified across the arena. "You are here because you believe. You can serve the unity. You will learn that service requires more than strength, more than speed, more than skill. It requires will." Rin listened closely. The word will seemed to carry weight, as if it were a challenge and a promise at the same time, the commander continued. "From this day, you will train until your body fails, and then you will train your mind to carry you further. You will face trials that no single world has prepared you for. If you endure, you will not only graduate, you will become part of something far greater than yourself." The cadets stood silent as the words settled over them. Rin felt his chest tighten, not from fear, but from something sharper, a sense that this was where he was meant to be. The orientation ended with assignments for the next day's drills. Rin made his way back to his room, mind already picturing the training fields. Tomorrow would be the start of the real test. The first morning at the Galactic Unity Academy began before the first sun rose. A loud chime rang through Barracks 3, followed by the same calm voice from the day before. "Cadets, report to Training Yard 4 in 3 minutes." Rin was already awake. He had slept lightly, half expecting the wake-up call to come at any moment. He pulled on his uniform and tightened the straps on his boots. The hallway was full of recruits rushing toward the exit. Some moved with quick, almost perfect steps, as if they had done this all their lives. Others were still fastening their gear while jogging. Training. Yard 4 was a large open space with sections of different terrain. One area had metal platforms that shifted and spun. Another was filled with sand dunes. A third had steep walls covered in climbing holds. The last section was a running track that circled the yard. Commander Rail stood at the center, white and gold armor catching the early light. Instructors from different worlds were lined up behind him. Each instructor looked different. Some were massive and heavily armored. Others were tall and thin, with long limbs and strange tools strapped to their backs. "Cadets," Ral began, "today you will begin your first full training rotation. You will be tested on speed, strength, coordination, and endurance. You will fail many times. That is expected. What matters is that you keep moving." The first drill was the moving platform course. Rin stepped onto the first platform, which was steady under his weight. As soon as the instructor signaled, the platform slid sideways and the next one began to rise. Rin leapt forward, landing with a jolt. The platforms moved faster as he went on, some spinning, others tilting. A scaled recruit from the world of Corin moved ahead of him with perfect balance. Rin's landings were heavier, and each shift in the platform sent a shock through his legs. He made it to the last platform, but nearly slipped off before pulling himself back up. His arms burned, but he kept his footing. The second drill was the sand run. The dunes were soft and high, and every step sank deep. Rin started at a steady pace, passing a few cadets who had sprinted at first and were already slowing down. The sun climbed higher, and heat began to rise from the sand. Sweat soaked his collar, but he kept his eyes on the next rise. Halfway through, a tall recruit with mist-like skin drifted past him as if the sand had no weight. Rin gritted his teeth and pushed harder. His legs ached, but each step forward felt like a small victory. When he reached the end, his breathing was heavy, but he was still standing. The climbing wall was next. It rose far higher than it had looked from the ground, and the holds were spaced unevenly. Some were small enough for only 2 fingers, others shaped for larger hands or claws. Rin climbed slowly, choosing each hold with care. A 4-armed insectoid recruit passed him easily, but Rin kept moving, 1 hand and 1 foot at a time. Near the top, his arms felt heavy, but the thought of stopping never came. He pulled himself over the edge and allowed himself a short breath before heading back down the other side. Finally came the endurance run on the track. This was the longest drill. The instructors set a pace that would wear down even the fastest recruits. Some dropped out after the first few laps. Rin ran at a steady rhythm, his breathing in time with his steps. Every lap, an instructor would increase the pace slightly. By the 7th lap, his chest burned, his vision narrowed, but he forced himself to match the new speed. A cadet beside him stumbled and fell out of the race. Rin didn't look back. On the 9th lap, his legs felt like stone, yet he kept them moving. When the final signal came, he slowed to a walk, sweat dripping from his face. The drills ended, but training was not over. The recruits were divided into small groups for combat practice. Rin's group was led by Therine, the ZerathPrime warrior. He had met on his first day. "Combat is not only about strength," Therine said. "It is about how you use what you have." The group began with basic staff drills. Therine's strikes were heavy, each one testing their grip. Rin blocked the first few easily, but as the pace increased, he found himself straining to keep up. When Therine's staff caught him in the side, it knocked the breath from his lungs. "Recover," Therine ordered. Rin straightened, forced air back into his chest, and took his stance again. The next strike came harder. He blocked it, though the impact sent a sharp ache through his arms. The drill continued, each strike a test of endurance. By the time the session ended, Rin's uniform was soaked, and his arms felt like lead. Yet he was still on his feet. Some recruits had been sent to rest after collapsing during the drills. Later, in the mess hall, the air was filled with the sound of voices in many languages. Rin sat with Kel, who had also made it through the day without falling out. "You do not move like the others," Kel said. "But you do not stop either." Rin smiled faintly. "Stopping has never helped me before." Kel nodded as if considering the words carefully. Maybe that will matter here. That night, back in his room, Rin lay on his bed, muscles sore and heavy. He closed his eyes, replaying the day in his mind. Every drill had shown him the same truth. Most here had skills far beyond his own. But he had something they did not expect. He did not quit. As the barracks lights dimmed, he promised himself that tomorrow, no matter what the instructors threw at him, he would still be standing when it ended. The morning air in Training Yard 2 was cooler than usual, but tension made it feel heavy. Today was the first official sparring day for the new cadets. The instructors had paired recruits into matches, and the crowd of trainees was larger than usual. Word had spread that some of the matchups were unusual. Rin stood on the far edge of the yard, stretching his arms. He had been assigned to fight Vral, a towering cadet from the volcanic world of Krath. Vral's body was covered in dark, jagged plates that looked more like natural armor than skin. His shoulders were as broad as the doorway to a barracks room, and each of his hands had thick claws. The Krath warriors were known for their raw power. Even among other species, they were feared in close combat. Most recruits avoided them in the training halls, but today there would be no avoiding. An instructor with silver markings on her armor stepped forward. "This is a standard sparring bout. 3 rounds. Energy staff only. Control your strikes, but commit to your movements. Begin when I signal." Vrail picked up a heavy energy staff from the rack. It was longer than Rin's, and the blue light along its edges glowed brighter as he gripped it. Rin chose a shorter staff. It felt balanced in his hands, though compared to Vral's weapon, it looked almost like a toy. The instructor raised her arm. "Begin." Vral moved first. His first strike came down like a falling pillar, and Rin barely managed to bring his staff up in time. The impact sent a jolt through his arms, forcing him to step back. Before he could reset, Vral's second swing came from the side, fast for someone his size. Rin twisted away, feeling the air shift where the staff had passed. The crowd gave a low murmur. Many had expected Rin to be knocked down in the first seconds. Rin focused on keeping his distance. His strikes were quick, aimed at the gaps in Vral's defense, but they bounced off the thick plates. Vral's reach was long enough that every step back felt like a narrow escape. Midway through the first round, Vral's staff struck Rin's side. The energy field made the blow sting sharply, and the force drove him to one knee. He heard Kel's voice from the crowd. "Up, Rin!" Rin pushed himself upright. The instructor gave no signal to stop, so the match continued. He circled left, trying to force Vral to turn and expose a weaker angle. The first round ended with Vral pressing him toward the edge of the yard. The instructor's voice cut through the sound of the crowd. "Round 1 complete." Vrail lowered his staff but kept his eyes locked on Rin. "You are slower than I expected," he said in a deep, rumbling tone. "And you are faster than I hoped," Rin replied, breathing hard. The second round began. This time Rin stepped in quickly, striking first. His staff connected with Vrail's arm, making the Krath warrior shift his stance. It was not enough to hurt him, but it showed that Rin could get close. Vrail countered with a downward strike. Rin blocked it, but the weight forced his knees to bend. Another strike followed, this one catching Rin's shoulder and spinning him halfway around. Pain flared, but he steadied himself before Vral could close the gap completely. The crowd grew louder. Some shouted for Vral to finish it. Others began to call Rin's name, surprised he had lasted this long. Near the end of the second round, Vral feinted a low strike, then swung high. The blow caught Rin's chest full force. For a second, the world went white. His breath vanished, and his legs wavered. Most would have fallen, but Rin's feet dug into the ground. He stepped forward instead of back. His staff came up in a quick arc, striking Vral's side just as the round ended. It was not enough to tip the match, but it forced Vral to take a step away. As they rested before the final round, Rin's chest ached with each breath. His arms felt heavy, but his mind was clear. The instructor signaled again. Final round. This time, Rin stayed close from the start. He used short, quick strikes, forcing Vral to keep blocking rather than attacking freely. Vral's expression shifted. He was not used to opponents pressing forward after taking hard hits. Vral swung hard, trying to break the rhythm. Rin ducked, under one strike, and landed two quick blows to Vral's leg. It made the larger cadet shift his stance again, giving Rin a moment to breathe. The match grew faster. Vral's strength still threatened to end it with one strike, but Rin's movement made him work harder. Sweat ran down Rin's neck. His arms trembled with each block, but his eyes stayed fixed on the openings he could use. In the final seconds, Vral lunged forward. Rin sidestepped and struck at the same moment, his staff connecting with Vral's side. The sound of the strike echoed in the yard. The instructor stepped between them and raised her hand. Match complete. The crowd was louder now, not because of the result. Vral had clearly landed more heavy hits, but because Rin was still standing. Many had thought the match would end in the first round. Vral looked at him for a long moment. His voice was quieter now. You take the hits. You keep moving. Not many do that. Rin gave a small nod. It is what I do best. The instructor dismissed them, and the crowd began to thin. Kel found Rin near the edge of the yard. I thought you were finished after that chest strike. So did I, Rin admitted. But the round was not over. As they walked back toward the barracks, the whispers around them were different from the ones on the first day. They no longer spoke only of how small the human was. They spoke of how he had lasted against a Krath warrior. Rin said nothing, but inside, he felt the first signs that he might belong here after all. The next week brought a new round of sparring matches. This time, the instructors were pairing cadets based on how well they had performed so far. Some matches were between equally skilled fighters. Others were meant to push one recruit far beyond their limits. Rin knew where he stood. His skill had improved, but he was still not the fastest or the strongest. What he had was endurance, and everyone was starting to notice. That was why his new assignment was no surprise. He was facing Vral again, but this time it would be under full-intensity rules. Training Yard 1 had been cleared for the match. The wide floor was marked with a bright ring. Around it, cadets filled the stands. There were more spectators than before, including several senior instructors. Word had spread that this fight would be worth watching. Kel stood beside Rin as they waited for the call. You know he will hit harder this time, Kel said quietly. I know, Rin answered. I just have to keep moving. The signal came. Both stepped into the ring. The instructor for the match was a tall, red-skinned veteran named Zorath. He looked at both fighters, then raised his voice. 3 rounds. No holding back. You may strike with full force, but stop at my signal. Ready. Vral gripped a heavy energy staff. The blue light along its length pulsed like a heartbeat. Rin's own staff felt lighter, but the weight in his hands was steady. Begin. Vrail wasted no time. His first strike came straight down, a test, to see if Rin could block at full strength. The impact was like catching a falling beam. Rin's arms shuddered, but he kept his stance. He spun away and tried a quick jab to Vral's midsection, but the plates there absorbed the strike. The second blow came faster. Rin blocked again, the staff vibrating in his grip. Vral pressed forward, each attack heavier than the last. The crowd's cheers grew louder with every exchange. Halfway through the round, Rin saw an opening and stepped in with a strike to Vral's leg. It landed cleanly, but before he could follow up, Vral swung with his full strength. The blow struck Rin's chest directly. The sound of the hit was sharp and heavy at once, like metal striking stone. For a moment, the air left Rin's lungs completely. His vision narrowed until only Vral's towering figure remained in sight. The crowd went silent. Everyone knew what that kind of strike could do. Many cadets from other worlds would have gone down instantly, needing a med team. Rin staggered. His chest felt like it had been hit by a falling wall. Pain radiated with every heartbeat. But in that blur of sensation, he felt something else. The choice to stop or to stand. He planted his foot forward. Vral was already moving in for the follow-up, expecting the fight to end. Instead, Rin brought his staff up in a sharp block, turning the next blow aside. His arms trembled, but he stepped toward Vral, not away. The crowd erupted in shouts. The silence was gone, replaced by disbelief and excitement. Vral's eyes narrowed. "You still stand." Rin's voice came out rough but steady. "Not finished." The rest of the round became a battle of endurance. Vral's strikes stayed powerful, but he was no longer careless. Rin's movements were slower, but they were deliberate. Every block and step kept him in the fight. When the instructor called the end of the first round, both fighters stepped back. Rin's breathing was heavy and a deep ache spread through his ribs, but he stayed upright. The second round began, and Vral pushed harder. He tried to break through Rin's defense with rapid strikes, forcing him to block again and again. Each block sent a shock through Rin's arms. Sweat blurred his vision, but he blinked it away. He aimed his own strikes at the same spots on Vral's side and leg, hoping to wear him down over time. Near the end of the second round, Vral landed another heavy hit, this time to Rin's shoulder. The pain made his grip falter, but he adjusted quickly and struck back. It was not enough to turn the fight, but it kept the match going. When the round ended, Vral stood breathing harder than before. Rin noticed it. The larger cadet's attacks were still strong, but the pace was taking a toll. The final round began with both moving more cautiously. Rin used his smaller frame to stay just outside Vral's reach, darting in for quick strikes. Vral tried to corner him, but each time Rin found a gap and slipped away. Then, in the last moments, Vral launched a powerful overhead strike, aiming to end it. Rin raised his staff in a full block, feeling the shock run through his entire body. His knees bent under the force, but he pushed back with everything he had. The two staffs locked for a second before Rin twisted his and struck Vral's side one last time. The signal came. "Match complete!" The crowd roared. Rin stepped back, chest heaving. Vral lowered his staff and looked at him for a long moment. Then the Krath warrior gave a slow nod. "You should not have stayed standing after that first strike, but you did. You endure." Rin returned the nod. You hit harder than anyone I've ever faced. Vrail's voice was calm now. Then you have faced enough. As they left the ring, Kel appeared at Rin's side. You are either the toughest human I have met, or the most stubborn. Maybe both, Rin said, managing a faint smile. The whispers in the stands were clear. Humans might not have the armor of the Krath or the speed of the Rethus, but they had something else. The will to keep fighting when others would fall. That night, as Rin lay in his bunk, the ache in his chest and arms reminded him of every moment of the fight. He knew this was only one match in a long training cycle, but it had proved something important. Not to the others, to himself. He could take the hardest hit and still stand. The next day, the match between Rin and Vrail was all anyone in the academy seemed to talk about. Cadets repeated the moment when Rin had taken the massive chest hit and still kept fighting. Others argued about whether it had been luck or skill. But among the instructors, there was a different conversation. How a human had stayed in the ring against a Krath warrior for 3 full rounds. Rin tried to keep his focus on training. His ribs still ached from the blow, and every deep breath reminded him of it. But he also remembered something else. Near the end of the fight, Vrail had been breathing harder, moving a little slower. The Krath warrior's strength was incredible, but it had limits. 2 days later, the instructors announced a special endurance match. The rules were different this time. There would be no 3 rounds. The match would continue until one fighter stepped out of the ring or could no longer stand. When Rin heard the pairing, he felt a mix of nerves and determination. He was facing Vrail again. Training Yard 1 filled quickly. The match had drawn even more spectators than before. The sun was high, and heat shimmered above the polished floor of the ring. The instructor, Jorath, stepped forward and raised his voice. This is an endurance match. No time limit, no breaks. The match ends when one of you cannot continue. Begin when I signal. Vrail stood across the ring, his dark plates gleaming. He gave a small nod to Rin, as if to say this would be different. Rin nodded back. Jorath's hand dropped. Begin! Vrail moved first, swinging his staff in a wide arc. Rin stepped back, letting the blow pass, then countered with a quick strike to Vrail's side. It connected, but the armor absorbed most of the force. Still, it was the first mark in what Rin planned. Small hits, repeated over time. Vrail pressed forward, each swing heavy and fast. Rin blocked some, dodged others, and took a few glancing blows when he had no choice. The hits hurt, but he kept moving, forcing Vrail to keep turning and shifting. Minutes passed, and the crowd stayed loud. Rin noticed Vrail's breathing was steady, but his movements were slightly less sharp than at the start. Rin kept his pace even, saving his strength while making Vrail spend more of his. A heavy strike clipped Rin's shoulder, sending a jolt of pain down his arm. He stumbled but quickly recovered, circling to the left. Another quick jab to Vrail's leg followed, light but precise. Vrail growled low in his chest. You avoid too much? Stand and fight. I am fighting, Rin said. Keeping his distance, the match continued. Vrail's attack stayed powerful, but each one cost him energy. Rin's smaller strikes began to add up. He targeted the same spots again and again, a joint at the knee, the side where the armor plates overlapped, the arm that carried most of the weapon's weight. After 15 minutes, Vrail's swing slowed slightly. It was small, but Rin caught it. He began to press forward more often, forcing Vrail to defend. The larger cadet blocked easily at first, but the repeated strikes made his arms work harder. The crowd noticed the change. The shouts became sharper as if everyone sensed the fight shifting. Kel's voice rose above the noise. "Keep moving, Rin." Another 5 minutes passed. Rin's own body was aching now, sweat running into his eyes. His ribs throbbed and his legs felt heavy, but he could see Vrail's breathing was deeper, his shoulders lifting more with each inhale. Rin feinted left, drawing a heavy swing from Vrail, then darted right and struck the side of his leg. The impact made Vrail take a step back. For the first time, the Krath warrior's footing was less certain. Vrail answered with a strong forward rush. His staff came down hard and Rin blocked, but the force drove him to one knee. Before Vrail could press the advantage, Rin twisted away and came up with a sharp strike to the arm joint. It made Vrail pull his weapon back just a little slower than before. The match had now gone on far longer than most sparring bouts. Some of the crowd had fallen silent, watching closely. Every move mattered now. Rin kept his attacks short and controlled. He never tried for a single huge blow. Instead, each strike was meant to chip away, to make Vrail lift his weapon again and again until his arms grew heavier. 20 minutes in, Rin saw his chance. Vrail swung wide, slower than before, and the opening at his side was larger than it had been all match. Rin stepped in and struck twice in quick succession, both hits landing cleanly. Vrail grunted, the sound more of surprise than pain, but his guard dropped for a fraction of a second. The crowd roared. Even the instructors leaned forward to watch. Vrail reset his stance, breathing hard now. His swings still had power, but the speed was gone. Rin knew he could not overpower the Krath warrior, but he could outlast him. The next few exchanges proved it. Rin blocked without stumbling, dodged without losing balance, and landed strikes more often. Each time, Vrail had to lift his heavy staff again, burning more energy. Finally, after more than half an hour in the ring, Vrail's step back crossed the boundary line. Zerath's voice cut through the noise. "Match over! Rin wins!" The crowd erupted in cheers. Rin lowered his staff slowly, every muscle aching, his chest rising and falling with deep breaths. Vrail stood still for a moment, then stepped forward and extended his hand. "You wore me down," he said, his voice low but steady. "You made me earn it," Rin replied, gripping his hand. Vrail gave a short nod, the gesture carrying respect. The instructors exchanged glances. They had seen many endurance matches, but rarely one where the smaller, weaker fighter had turned the tide through persistence alone. As Rin left the ring, Kel joined him. That was more than stubbornness. That was smart. "Sometimes they are the same thing," Rin said, smiling faintly despite the pain in his body. That night, as he lay on his bunk, the victory did not feel like luck. It felt like proof. Proof that humans could win not by overpowering, but by outlasting. The Academy was buzzing with excitement after Rin's endurance victory over Vrail. Cadets talked about the humans' ability to withstand repeated hits and still press forward. Even the instructors were impressed. Rin's name had begun to circulate. Beyond his squad, whispered in the halls of Training Yard 1 and in the mess hall. Rin did not dwell on the attention. He knew that endurance had brought him victory once, but the true challenge was still ahead. The final test for cadets of his level was a free-form combat exercise where every fighter faced multiple opponents in succession. The match was designed to push strategy, stamina, and adaptability to their limits. On the morning of the final exercise, Rin stretched in the quiet of the training hall. His muscles were sore, his ribs still sensitive from the last match, but his mind was sharp. Kel walked in, carrying 2 small water canisters. "Are you ready to show them what humans can really do?" he asked. Rin took a deep breath. "I am. I have to be." The arena was massive. Platforms and rings floated at different heights, and energy barriers shifted to create new obstacles. Cadets from different species stood ready. Some were taller, stronger, or faster than Rin. Some had long-range weapons, while others wielded heavy staffs like Zorath, the instructor, stepped forward. "This is not a match of strength alone. You must use your wits, endurance, and adaptability. The last cadet standing will be recognized as the champion of this exercise. Begin." The crowd held its breath as the platforms shifted and barriers fell away. Multiple opponents rushed toward Rin. He dodged a sweeping strike from a tall Rethis cadet, countered with a quick jab to the knee, and spun away from a heavy blow from a Krath trainee. The exercise was brutal, not just physically but mentally. Each new opponent demanded a different approach. Rin relied on timing and observation. He waited for moments when his attackers overcommitted and struck efficiently, avoiding long swings that would exhaust him. 20 minutes into the exercise, he faced Vral again. The Krath warrior's staff glowed faintly, and his expression was calm but focused. They both knew each other's moves. Vral tested him with strikes designed to wear him down again, but Rin was ready. He blocked and dodged, countering where he could, using every lesson from the previous matches. Rin's strategy was clear. He could not overpower, but he could outlast. He used short, sharp strikes to fatigue Vral, making him lift the heavy staff repeatedly. The Krath warrior's swing slowed, his steps grew heavier. Rin's heart pounded, but he stayed steady, conserving energy while keeping up the pressure. Around them, other cadets were eliminated one by one. Some stumbled, some were forced out of the floating platforms. The exercise became a test of mental endurance as much as physical skill. Rin noticed that some opponents tried to trap him between obstacles. He stayed aware, anticipating movements, shifting positions, and never letting himself be cornered. The final stretch approached. Only Rin, Vral, and a few others remained. The remaining cadets paused for a moment, realizing the last stages would determine the victor. Rin saw an opportunity. Vral swung a wide strike, and Rin sidestepped, striking at the Krath's exposed side. Vral's arm carried the weapon backward, and Rin pressed forward, landing a clean blow to the leg. Vral stumbled slightly. Rin followed with another short strike, aiming to keep him off balance. The crowd leaned forward, sensing the human was in control for the first time in their duels. Vral recovered, spinning to strike again, but Rin moved, faster, striking at an angle that forced Vral to retreat. Step by step, hit by hit, Rin had worn him down. Finally, the instructor called out, "End of exercise! Rin stands victorious!" The arena erupted in cheers. Cadets from all species applauded, and even those eliminated earlier nodded in respect. Rin lowered his staff slowly, every part of his body screaming from exertion, but his chest rose and fell steadily. He had not relied on raw power. He had relied on endurance, observation, and timing. Vral approached him. "You have proven what we suspected," the Krath warrior said, his voice steady. "Strength is not only in the body. You endure, and, you think?" Rin smiled faintly. And you taught me to survive every hit. The instructor stepped forward. Jorath's face was stern, but there was respect in his eyes. This exercise shows why humans are extraordinary. They may not match some species in raw strength, but their resilience, adaptability, and determination allow them to succeed where others might fail. Kel slapped Rin on the back. I knew it. You did it. Rin allowed himself a moment to relax. The final exercise had proven more than skill. It had proven that humans could face overwhelming odds and still prevail. Other cadets had incredible strength, speed, or weapons. Rin had none of those advantages. What he had was something that could not be measured in tests: willpower, endurance, and the ability to keep fighting when the situation seemed impossible. That evening, in the quiet of his bunk, Rin reflected on the events of the past weeks. Each match, each blow had taught him a lesson. Each moment of pain and recovery had built something stronger than armor or muscle. Humans were not the fastest or the strongest, but they had the ability to endure, adapt, and overcome. He knew the challenges of the academy were far from over, but for the first time he understood something deeply. No matter how tough the opponents, no matter how powerful the attacks, a human who refused to quit could change the outcome of any fight. And in that moment, Rin felt a quiet pride, not for himself alone, but for every human who had ever faced the impossible and stood their ground. He had not only survived, he had shown that resilience, intelligence, and courage could triumph where strength alone might fail. The Academy's arena had never been so crowded. Cadets, instructors, and even visitors from nearby colonies gathered to see the final recognition ceremony. The events of the past week had spread quickly, and Rin's endurance victories over Frail and others had become the talk of the system. Some whispered in disbelief, others in admiration. A human had not only survived against multiple species, but had excelled where others failed. Rin walked through the crowd, his uniform still carrying small scratches from the final exercise. He kept his gaze forward, though his heart raced. He did not usually enjoy attention, but today was different. Today was about proof, about showing the Academy that humans could compete at the highest level. Jorath, the lead instructor, stepped onto the podium. His voice carried across the arena, calm yet commanding. Cadets of the Academy, today we recognize a warrior who has shown extraordinary ability, not by size, speed, or raw strength, but through endurance, intelligence, and determination. Rin took a deep breath as Jorath continued. This cadet has faced opponents larger, stronger, and faster than most. Every match has tested their limits, yet this cadet has succeeded. Let it be known that humans are not to be underestimated. They possess qualities that allow them to triumph where others might fail. The crowd erupted in applause. Rin felt a mixture of relief and pride. He stepped forward when his name was called. The cheers grew louder. Vral, standing nearby, gave a small nod, the gesture of respect more powerful than words. Jorath handed Rin a small medal. For courage, endurance, and exemplary skill, you are recognized as the champion of this exercise. Wear it with honor. Rin accepted the medal, gripping it firmly. He glanced at Vrail, who raised his staff in a silent salute. Rin returned the gesture. In that moment, he realized the importance of respect between warriors, no matter their species. After the ceremony, cadets approached Rin. Some offered congratulations, others asked questions about strategy and training. He spoke calmly, explaining how endurance, observation, and persistence had guided him through each match. Every answer was honest, focused on effort rather than luck. Later, Kel found him sitting alone near the edge of the arena. "You did it," he said simply. "You showed them all what humans can do." Rin looked out at the crowd dispersing. "It wasn't just me. Every human who ever faced impossible odds did this too. We endure, we adapt, we keep going when others would quit." Kel nodded. And now they know it. That evening, Rin walked through the academy halls. The walls were lined with the symbols of many species, each telling stories of past champions and heroes. For the first time, Rin saw human potential represented among them. He felt a quiet satisfaction. This was not the end of his journey, but a beginning. He returned to the training room to check his equipment. His body ached, every muscle reminding him of the matches, but he smiled. Pain was temporary. Skill, determination, and courage lasted. The academy had tested him, and he had passed. The next day, an unexpected message arrived from the Council of Allied Colonies. They had heard of the human cadet who had outlasted and outsmarted multiple species. They requested a meeting to discuss further training and possible deployment of humans in exploratory missions. The message carried respect and a hint of excitement. Rin read it quietly, then looked at Kel. "Humans may have a place among the stars," he said, "not just as workers or soldiers, but as explorers, thinkers, and problem solvers. This is bigger than the academy." Kel smiled. "You've opened the door. It's up to us to walk through it." In the following weeks, Rin continued training, but now with a new purpose. Every drill, every sparring session was a step toward something larger than himself. Other cadets sought advice, and instructors asked for insights. Rin shared his approach, how endurance, timing, and careful strategy could overcome raw power. Slowly, the human methods began to influence the way some of the other species trained. One evening, as the sun set over the academy grounds, Rin stood alone on the highest platform, looking at the distant stars. The view was breathtaking, and it reminded him why he had chosen this path. Humans were small in the vast universe, but small did not mean weak. Rin thought about the fights, the pain, and the lessons. He realized that being human meant more than surviving blows. It meant refusing to give up, finding ways to adapt, and showing courage when the odds seemed impossible. Those were the qualities that made humans extraordinary. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter as he looked at them. Somewhere out there, challenges awaited. Worlds unexplored, dangers, unknown, and mysteries to solve. Rin understood that humans would not face these challenges by brute strength alone, but by enduring, thinking, and acting together. And in that moment, he made a promise to himself and to all humans who might follow. He would continue to fight, learn, and show the universe that humans were not just survivors. Humans were capable of greatness. The Academy had tested him. The fights had proven it. And now, the future stretched out before him like the endless sky, full of possibilities, waiting for humans to step forward. Rin turned and walked back toward the training halls, his steps steady, his mind sharp, and his heart ready. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one truth. No matter the challenge, humans could endure, adapt, and rise. The universe would remember that lesson, and so would every cadet who had witnessed it firsthand. The day ended with quiet satisfaction. But Rin knew this was only the beginning. Humans had a place among the stars, and he intended to lead the way, one step, one fight, and one victory at a time.